Are you ready to leave behind overwhelm and gain some clarity and focus?
Are you ready to go get that nugget? Let's go.
Yeah. Welcome to Life Mastery for Women. I'm your host, Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind. Join me here 3 times a week for empowering conversations, powerful tools, and techniques to help you experience more joy, healing, and deeper connections in your life. Get ready, ladies. It's time to get that nugget of inspiration towards your transformation. Life is hard, but your personal growth doesn't have to be. Hey ladies, it's Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind, here today with my beautiful wife, Amy.
Hello, everyone.
And we hope we are finding you working with clarity and focus. And if you're not experiencing clarity and focus, then it is our intention that
in today's episode, we give you just one nugget of inspiration towards your transformation.
So let's go. Let's go get that nugget. So we want to kind of walk you through, again, we had a little bit of a coaching situation. It is Memorial Day weekend. And Amy came home and we're just like, we get into the cycle of confusion every week where, it comes to the weekend and we're like, yeah, we're going to do all this stuff and we're going to go in the garden and we're going to go to the beach and we're going to hang out and we're going to ride bikes and walk the dogs and get all this stuff done and work on the program. And she's got some stuff to do at the desk. And then we get in the house and something hits us straight over the head. Tell us about your experience.
In a word, overwhelm.
In one word. You should see her face right now. Her face is red. We did get some sun today. We'll tell you about that at the end of the episode. We'll try not to let me forget.
Okay.
But her face just screamed with overwhelm. And I'm like, immediately moved into coach mode. And I'm like, okay, what do we got to do?
I said, there's something wrong with me. I just am not doing great. So just so you know, I'm like the girl that is, from the time my feet hit the floor, I am go from one end of the day to the other. And, when I'm home, I'm working at the desk and working on stuff and all the stuff. Whatever the stuff is. Phone calls, emails, paperwork. And I just lately have been like, I just don't know what to do or which thing to do. So I actually am going to lay down and watch this movie, which most of my family's like, what's wrong with her? Because she usually is doing 12 things while we're watching a movie.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know, we have 3 boys. One of them is out of the house and happily married. And we have 2 boys at home, a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old. And our 17-year-old is about to turn 18, will be the beginning of July. And he has autism. So there's a little bit of paperwork around that for any of you who have families with disabilities, that sometimes when they move into, quote, adulthood, that they still need some other support. And so there's a whole big process to gaining guardianship of Brandon, because as he's an adult, then, we move into different roles, so to speak. And so that's a lot of paperwork to manage. So that's just one of the things. And that's a big deal if you've ever gone through something like that.
And I was just going to say, and I'm not even sure if this came up in our conversation yesterday, but as you're talking about it right now, I've been aware of this, but it is a tasky thing, if that's a word, that I need to do. But it's also a very emotional thing. Yeah. Like I'm his mom and I'm still going to be his mom. But then now, like you just said, there's this other role. So it's also possible that, as I'm navigating through some of this, that there's some somewhat heavy emotion with it too.
And isn't that parenting? That as the kids, they're little and then they transition there, in elementary school, and then they're in upper L, and then they're in high school, and then, oh my gosh, now they're getting ready for college. And there's that kind of leave the nest syndrome, a lot of women feel, and probably men too, mothers and fathers, and moving into a different role with your kids. And so not only is that an experience, but with Brandon, he's not necessarily, quote, leaving the nest, but and really, if you think about it, our roles are not going to change. Our relationship with Brandon's not going to change. It might on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But you're still his mom. So, but, she's got a point, as you move through some of these processes in life, that there's new emotional, pieces to deal with.
So in an effort to keep us on track, I will say, let's put a pin in this, because I think this could be an entirely different podcast episode. But I'm recognizing, and you also you also should recognize, all you listeners, that as you are dealing with how to take care of overwhelm, that we're going to talk about what we did, recognizing that just like anything else that Jen ever talks about, there's also a whole lot of emotion behind it. And it's very rarely just what it appears to be on the surface.
Right. Well, and you think about all the things that that you do at the desk. Sometimes you can just get out a piece of paper or your computer and you just do the task. But if there's procrastination, if there's avoidance, all of those things are hints and clues to something bigger and something deeper. And in my work, what I do in working with energy and emotional states is trying to get to the bottom of that. Is what is the reason behind the procrastination or the avoidance? And sometimes there's a huge epiphany back there, and we're still digging through that. Sometimes it's hard, as the brain doesn't want to always just freely give that up because it's a sense of control. And then
Protection.
and she said protection because she kind of sat back from
Sorry.
from the microphone. I got to get her trained on how to use the microphone. You got to be straight up on top of that thing for people to hear you. So, but hey, you know what? Just a real quick break here, or a little plug-in. If you are interested in some more like emotional things as it relates to parenting specifically, or possibly even relationships, drop us a comment. If you're hearing this on YouTube, like and give us a comment on this particular podcast, or come to our Facebook groups, either Lady Rising on Facebook or Chakras for Beginners. Wherever you're hearing it, wherever you're in contact with us, give us a comment that says, yes, give us more parenting. If you're dealing with overwhelm and you're looking for help with releasing as your kids are growing, and that means that we as parents have to show up differently to be able to best support them as they grow and develop. So, all right, moving on to the story. So here she shows up, and it's the weekend. We're so excited and overwhelmed. I could see it in her face. And this was, I don't know, whatever, Friday morning or something. And so I see it in her face, and I just look at her. I'm like, what? And she's just like that look of overwhelm. And I said, okay. I said, so what do we need to do first? And so tell me, so I just said, okay, so tell me what's happening. So here she's able to just, well, tell me,
we just kind of called it, I said, there's just so much in here. And I knew there was lots of things that she knew about and lots of things that she didn't, or maybe didn't realize how much might be involved in what I was thinking about that particular topic. And so I said, okay. I said, I just kind of need to, or she said, sometimes maybe would it just be helpful to get it all out? And I said, yes. So we did what we might refer to as kind of a brain dump.
Yeah. And even before that, we were talking about, because, in my episodes, I say a lot about what we want to do is just engage with the environment. So what I suggested is let's get our energy in alignment first. Mm-hmm. And before we get out the paper, and there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power in doing the big thing that we'll tell you in just a second, which you just hinted at, is the brain dump, but is aligning our energy first, or trying to move any stuck energy that's in the way that might be creating this big block. So I'm like, okay, overwhelm is for me, at least in my experience, and you tell me if it's different, for me, it's a very fast, high energy state. So it's all of my upper chakras, my chest, my arms, and even my legs, even because I want to get up and move. And the energy in my head and my upper chakras, it's very scattered and chaotic. So what does overwhelm feel like to you?
I think that it can feel that way. And I think that it had gotten to be so much that it was actually pretty heavy.
Yeah.
It was I think you could tell by just being around me or looking at me, that instead of being like, oh my gosh, and sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do and I have to, then I'm, bouncing from one end of the house to the other. But this one was more like I just don't know what to do. I just can't move. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but it was heavier and slower. But often, to me, that just tells me it was way more than usual.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, is that now she just filled her overwhelm bucket all the way to the top and is like, let's just go take a nap.
Oh, completely.
I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. I have this, it's way too heavy. So then what we wanted to do and why I chose to get grounded, and for those of you that don't know, grounding really puts you in your body, connects you to Mother Earth, and allows you to really become present with yourself and kind of lock into that emotional state, but get really, really present in your body. So we're going to do a guided meditation, but it's been absolutely gorgeous out. And so we decided that instead of doing a guided meditation, which you can find them anywhere, I have a couple of them on my podcast episodes, but you can go to YouTube and find a grounding meditation. And they're amazing for those of you that feel anxious or really high energy like that kind of chaotic energy. Grounding every single day is going to absolutely help you. I can't even begin to tell you how much it's helped me. And so instead of doing a meditation, another thing that what we decided to do is let's go take the dogs for a walk. And so we go to this big open park. It's like this dirt road that kind of goes around the park with baseball diamonds. It's lots of wooded trees. What else would they be? Lots of woods, big open space. And to me, I love big open space like that. And so what we decided to do is just let's go wander around out there. And with our intention, we got out of the car and I said, with every step we take, it's going to ground us into Mother Earth and bring in the energy of clarity and focus. So let me just back up just a second just to say that is it doesn't always have to be clarity and focus. For me, sometimes, well, actually mine is clarity when I'm looking for overwhelm, but a lot of my clients, when they're feeling overwhelmed, their go-to is if you weren't feeling overwhelmed, you would be feeling what? And a lot of times for them, it's calm. Mm-hmm. For me, when I'm creating content, mine is about clarity. And so Amy's was clarity and focus.
Yeah. So just ask yourself that question.
Yep. And not say what's the opposite of overwhelm.
Right.
Is to ask yourself specifically, because there's times where you might feel overwhelmed and maybe it's calm that you want. Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's harmony. Sometimes it's clarity. Sometimes it's focus. So make sure you ask that question out loud. That's a really powerful thing. Mm-hmm. So when we went on our little walk, we set the intention for clarity and focus, and we wandered around and we talked about things, but it was pretty quiet.
Yeah. Slow.
Yeah. Slow wandering and really feeling our bodies, really feeling our feet hitting the ground. And then we did kind of a lap. And then I asked her how she was feeling. And
definitely feeling better. The sun was amazing too. So really soaked in the sun and just really felt present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there, and it was probably, I don't know, it's like 9 or 10 miles from the house. And so we drove back to the house and we kind of got grounded again. I mean, we stayed grounded. And then we got back to the house. And now because we're not in that high overwhelmed state, now we can brainstorm, or it was brain dumping is what it's called. And do you want to give them an explanation?
Well, I
want
to tell them something else that was interesting to me. So when we got, she's like, okay, let's go. Do you want to lay on the big couch or the little couch? And I'm like, I thought we were going to get to work. And she's like, well, we are, but I figure if we can lay down or at least sit in a relaxed way, then we will just kind of keep this flow going instead of getting all kind of ramped up again. I was like, oh, okay, because I was kind of confused for a second. I mean, I was all about a nap, don't get me wrong, but.
And we're thinking, she going to coach? Because if she's going to coach, then I'm going to need the Kleenex and I have to go to the bathroom first. And I'm going to have to. But I have noticed that about me when I'm creating something, creating some content, that if I stay in that relaxed position, that I can keep my energy a little slower moving, and then I really can focus. I have a lot of energy in the day, and so I recognize that about myself. And maybe you try that if you're feeling some overwhelm. Is you try that if maybe standing isn't a good idea. Maybe, if you have a stand-up desk, like sometimes if I'm really creating, like we have a retreat coming up that we're creating for our group coaching program, and I have to be downstairs working where I have whiteboards all over the place. I have a stand-up desk, and that's a lot of high energy. I do a lot of pacing. I wander around my office as I'm thinking and talking and hashing out different ideas. Then that's a high energy state, and that's a good state for me. But if I'm like writing an email or creating posts or creating podcast episodes, then it's better for me to stay in a relaxed position. So we get in this relaxed position, and I have a pad of paper, and I'm sitting across from her and she's laying down and I'm like, okay, let's do a brain dump. So tell everybody, for those of you at home who are listening to this episode, if you don't know what a brain dump is, it's different than a brainstorm.
Oh, yeah. So I literally and she insisted on scribing, being the person writing. But I just literally told her everything that was in my brain it started out as all sorts of to-dos. I need to this, I need to this, I need to that, I need to this,
Yep.
list. And, we made sure at the beginning, just say it. Don't launch into a big story about it. Don't give all the details about it. Just say what the thing is. So I said it, and then maybe one or two little to-dos underneath that might have been. And then, as I started to get all of those things out, then there became some things that were maybe weighing heavy, or things that were that I was worried about or had concerns about, or that were on my mind, so as the big pile of things got out and we got to some of the other things, then it was a few maybe more emotional things, nothing huge, but they went from task things to more concern, worry, emotional things a little bit.
And when we started, as I have a pad of paper and I'm like, okay, go. When we're emptying out our brain, this is our mental capacity. And as you've heard me say before, our mental capacity is not very big. It doesn't hold a lot, but we cram a lot in there. And to me, I can feel like it's this container that's inside your head, and it's all these things that you have to do that are bouncing around in there, causing that chaos in your head. I have so much to do. Too many tabs open, right? And so when we can brain dump, you're emptying that out. So now you can think of one thing at a time. So a brain dump is basically you're like taking your ear off and just shaking all those things out and writing them down. And like she said, staying on one topic at a time. And so we stay on one topic. She would say, okay, she wrote, let's say, like guardianship for Brandon. And so I would write guardianship. And then okay, what needs to be done? Oh, I need to send this email. I need to gather this paperwork. I need to make this phone call. I need to go in and visit this person. So I wrote all those down. And I could see that it was creating a little something in her. So I'm like, okay. And then she goes, and I'm worried. I'm worried about this. And so then we kind of talked about that. We kind of uncovered seeing things about the role changes that are, as Brandon turns 18 years old, and now it's a guardianship, but wait, I'm still his mom. And so we kind of, I wouldn't say dove head first, but we uncovered some emotions behind that. And so then now at the end, we have this two solid pieces of paper with this whole list kind of outlined. And then it was like, okay, now I'm like, how do you feel? You feel pretty good. She feels better. Mm-hmm. And brain was a little bit clearer, right? And then now we went back through the list and said, what are some of those things that we can kind of either put on the calendar? You could delegate to me, delegate to somebody else, or maybe it's not something that we have to do right this minute. And so then we did that. Yep. And so then now tell us about the process after. Like, how did it feel now that you kind of delegated some of those things to me, and we put some things on the calendar when you could go to this appointment or send an email. Okay, so just tell us like the after effect.
It felt good. It felt good to have made some decisions, realizing you were closer to having some things done than you thought maybe. And for me, some of the things that were on the list required some conversations between Jen and I, family decisions to be made. So then, I mean, sometimes I don't know what it's like in relationships that you have, but you have the stuff you're thinking about and your responsibilities, and they have the stuff that they're thinking about and their responsibilities. And certainly they overlap, but certain things fall more to me and certain things fall more to her. And so then when this conversation comes up where now we're able to, whether it would just be the summer schedule for the boys, for example, well, I need her input and I can't finish that project until we talk about it. So then because that came up, it gave us the opportunity to talk about it and kind of come to as much of decisions as we could at that time. So that was really helpful. Instead of me just knowing it's on my list of things to do, but then now we accomplished it or plan to talk about it again at a future point.
Yeah. And this is where, communication is so vital and it is so important. And I think a lot of times that as a partnership, you get into these certain roles that you're good at, and then that becomes the sole job of that person. And, she's better at things than I am, and I'm better at things than she is. And so we kind of have these defined roles, and we don't always talk about what it is that we did or need to do with each other necessarily.
Right.
And it's like, she's got these tasky things to do, and I'm a very big picture thinker. And so she's like, sometimes you, Jen, get overwhelmed with talking about all these things. And so I'm not going to talk about it with you. But at the same time, we're a team. And maybe being able to take this big, all of these tasks and break them down where I can help with that. And then some of the tasks I can actually help with. There are phone calls I can make, or, I need to take Brandon to get his glasses fixed. Okay, well, I can go do that. And she's like, oh, you can? You know what I mean? So it's about asking help. It's about getting it out of your head, and it's about recognizing where you're at, what you need to do, and finding different ways to do those things instead of a bunch of shouldings, when it's, I should be at the desk, or I need to go do this, or I should go do that. And it's like, I was just talking about this a couple weeks ago, maybe, where I'm like, I'm a rebel against my own shoulds, where I like say, I should write the list in email, right? We have this giant list, of emails, and I don't write them at all. And I should do that. Well, then I go, well, God, you're telling me what to do. I'm going to go do something else now. I'm going to rebel against. Like, you're the one who said it, and you're rebelling against it.
It's pretty ridiculous when you stand back and look at it.
Seriously. One of the other things that we are talking about doing is also what we are calling office work sprints. Is, you have this list, you have to send some emails and staying on a task, one task at a time, until it's at least pushed forward to the place it can be pushed forward. Sometimes these projects aren't complete. So like this guardianship paperwork is on the list right now is I need to write this email and I need to gather all of the paperwork. Okay, so you're going to do those two things. Write the email and hit send. Yes, the project isn't complete because you're waiting for this response from the person, but that's okay. You did what you needed to do in that moment. You can check those things off and then move on to another topic. And I always recommend just set a timer. It's 4:20 right now, so let's just work until 5 o'clock, see what you can do, check off one thing at a time, try to stay focused, make notes if your brain gets cluttered with something else. But it really is about the person holding the flashlight that's in control, not the flashlight. It's the mind that's got the flashlight that is over here, over there, look at over here, and it is all scattered all over the place. It's like you, deep down, the real you is the person, the spirit holding the flashlight. You direct where your focus goes. That you are the holder of the flashlight, not the flashlight. I know it's a little bit of an analogy. It's in one of my older, it's like last year's podcast. It was a good one, though. That was a good one.
Absolutely.
All right. So that was pretty good. The other thing that we talked about is where she is in her meditation practice. And I do wonder, as we meditate, one of the things that I've suggested, I'm like, okay, we need to meditate every day, sometimes even 3 times a day. Like, just get it in and get really proficient at it and get really good at it. And you start recognizing that just collectively you start feeling better. And she's like, okay, but listen, if I sit down and meditate, the stuff still needs to be done. And I said, right, but you know what? If you're meditating on like clarity or focus, then you're going to recognize that collectively you're either going to have better focus. So when you do sit down, right what to do and things start kind of going smoother. Or sometimes there are no demands from other people. Like things just don't come across your desk. So instead of having 20,000 things a day to do, you have 10,000 things and you keep meditating. Now you have 5,000, and the list just gets better and you just get better. And we have talked about it numerous times. You meditate every day, and then all of a sudden 2 days goes by and you're starting to feel a little bit moody. And then 4 days goes by and you're starting to feel like things, maybe you don't feel good physically. And then 6 days go by and you're like, oh my God, it's the weekend and all I want to do is take a nap. And I'm like, and it's called the meditation drop. And so it's like you are raising your numbers, you meditate every day, you're raising your numbers, and then all of a sudden you stop, you quit, you forget, and your numbers start going back down. And sometimes it is quite the fall. Mm-hmm. So do you want to give anything? Do you want to talk about that at all?
Sure. I think that for me, it's not something that I thought of. It's interesting because, not to throw you under the bus or anything, but
dude, wait, before you say anything.
I'm positive that it's something she's already said about herself on the podcast, but I can see it very clearly in her when it happens.
I probably have said it.
I'm sure you have. And so for me, I do think that this could be something that is a combination and that's a part of it. Cameron and I were meditating every morning on our way, not on our way. We weren't meditating on our way anywhere before we left for work and school. So I was taking him to school every day. And so his schedule has changed slightly. And now Jen has been taking him to school. And so now I'm up, I'm getting ready, and then I'm going to work, and I'm going to work early. And so interestingly, I haven't been meditating in the morning like I was. And it wasn't until we talked about it this weekend that she's like, do you think that has anything to do with it? And I certainly think that it, could definitely play a part in this heavier feeling of overwhelm or this different feeling that I'm having. Yeah. Because I definitely a couple times have said, there's something wrong with me. Like I just, because usually I'm go, go, go. I might be spinning. I might not be getting actually a lot done, but I sure look like I am. Yeah. Well, whereas this been more like I'm going to go take a nap.
She didn't spill any secret about me, but when I drop, it is hard and fast. I'm like, okay. And I have quite the rainbow of emotions that I deal with pretty much like every 10 minutes.
Rainbow is such a pretty sight, and I wouldn't say that's what happens. That's all, folks. That's all I'm going to say.
Anyway, all right, let's wrap up this podcast, and thanks for listening. So if this is something that you would like some help in, we are a supportive group. And we would love to be able to work with you. So send us an email at themeditationroomtc@gmail.com and, say, hey, you know what? I want to work with you, or I want to see what you got. I want to be able to have some clarity and focus. Or you two seems like so much fun. I just want to hang out with you.
We are a lot of fun.
We are a lot of fun. Unless we're not.
But you know what? You know what we are? We're real.
We're real. This is us. I can't use that because that's trademarked. But anyway, also a very good TV show if you want to check that out. This is us. So the meditation room, tc@gmail.com. Send us an email. Say, hey, you know what? I want to see you guys. I want to work with you. I want to get as good and as funny and strong as you guys are. And then let's just have a chat. We'll have a chat and see how we can best support you. In the meantime, keep going, keep growing, and keep getting those nuggets and keep transforming. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to like, subscribe, and leave a comment as to how this has inspired you. If you're interested in learning about our Lady Leaders Retreat and to join a community of women who connect, heal, and create a life that is full of joy, inspiration, and empowerment, then send me an email at themeditationroomtc@gmail.com. Subject line, let's talk. And I will set up a time for us to have a conversation. And in the meantime, keep going, growing, and transforming, and keep looking for those nuggets of inspiration.